Being an activist, but what do you say to your critics?
Again, you're being an activist. I am not.
That's not appropriate, sir.
Who are you with? What's your name?
That's not an appropriate question for you to ask. You're
going to ask how many questions? You get 3?
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Good morning, Liberty lovers, Liberty curious, and anyone else tuning in to Friendly Fire. If you're watching live, then let me especially thank you for tuning in so early. This show is dedicated to interviewing libertarian candidates running for office and only libertarian candidates. As the name suggests, candidates will be asked some tough questions. But as a fellow libertarian, I'm not here to make them look foolish or fail. I'm raising the bar for interviewing candidates and the expectation for candidates. The Libertarian Party is the third largest political party in the United States and the only viable option to compete with the big two. If we're going to compete, then let's do so at all levels. Now, a quick note here real quick. If you're watching this episode actually is pre-recorded. And in this episode, I bring on Erik Gerhardt, who is the Libertarian Party U.S. Senate candidate for Pennsylvania. So with that, let's go ahead and bring Erik in. Erik, how are you?
I'm good. A lot of running around I had to do today. Just got back from the Pocono Cannabis Fest.
Oh, what is that?
It was a cannabis festival that they were hosting over the weekend. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I misheard.
Yeah.
How did it go?
I think it went pretty good. We got a really good reception. A lot of Democrats were taking the consideration of another option and like the fact that they will have another option that's going to be on the ballot in November. Republicans were seeing the same. They're really upset with the two choices that they have. They both know they're corrupt, and they're looking forward to a nice new young candidate to get in there and bring some new life back to the country that needs a breath of fresh air desperately.
Awesome. So you said the Democrats, is that, I'm not familiar with the Pennsylvania area, the state, or where you're from. Is that your largest contender where you are?
I mean, it's about even for both sides. I mean, the Democrats it's about a 50-50 split here in Pennsylvania. I know during the primary, Fetterman got, I think, 900,000 votes. And then there was still another like 400,000 or 500,000 left on the table for other candidates. And the same thing for the Republicans. So, I mean, you're looking somewhere around 1.25 million voting in the primary. And it shows a very wide split right now between what people want. And there's still another 46% that wasn't counted because of all the independents in Pennsylvania, which I'm hoping to gain that number there and then steal some from both sides and make something really nice happen.
Awesome. That sounds actually really great. So so let's start with first. You are already on the ballot, correct? Or like it's a done deal for you?
We just sent in all our signatures. Monday's the deadline, which is tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think we have enough that they won't contest us for my seat and the governor and lieutenant governor seat. The smaller races, we'll see if they'll contend with people who got closer to their just bare minimum numbers and then just a little bit over, or how much they're going to challenge. I know they're going to challenge us tooth and nail, especially if they don't. I know they don't want to lose any seats. So
Mhm.
we'll see how much and how far they want to push this once it gets to, putting the nose to the grindstone.
Gotcha. But so it sounds that sounds great, because I know that in many states, ballot access is, the biggest challenge in more than one way. Here in Florida, we're actually pretty fortunate that we actually have ballot access. It's just a matter of completing this, the proper number of signatures and all that. But we don't like ballot access prior to that is not an issue. Is it? And is it the same in Pennsylvania, or do you?
We had the congressional maps get pushed back sometime for trying to redistrict stuff, so it cut into our petitioning time by a month and a half. We
Okay.
did have a successful challenge to them trying to raise the number. I think they wanted to raise it to 10,000 signatures that were needed. That means we would have needed double that.
Oh,
And
wow.
we kept the challenge so that it stayed at the original numbers, which was 5,000. So we only technically needed 10. Rough estimate of all our petition turns in, maximum number we could have before challenges is somewhere in the 25,000 range. So I think we really killed it.
Good, good. That's great to hear. And so tell us quickly, what is your platform? Like, what are you running on for Senate in Pennsylvania?
Well, my biggest thing is my small business and tax plan. I mean,
Hmm.
the economy is a huge thing, and everybody's worried about how they're going to be able to put food on the table and pay their bills. I mean, that's really what everybody's worried about right now with the inflation and all that. My tax plan's a 3-step plan. Would you like me to go into it right now, or?
We'll get into that during the bill review
Okay.
here shortly.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
But
then, other than that, I mean, education. Um, Defending the Second Amendment because they just want to pass that bill that's going through the House right now, and I mean that would put a ban on all semi-automatic weapons, which I mean you're talking pistols, shotguns, and everything, and
right,
uh, uh, shall not be infringed is pretty straightforward to me. So
right.
that's
No,
where
I
I
I
stand.
totally agree. I didn't read the bill myself, but I did kind of like flip through it really quickly, and it looks like it's over 100 pages, but a good many of those pages are listing all the specific firearms. If I am thinking of the right bill, and I think I am.
You probably are right. I didn't actually peruse it myself yet, but I mean,
Hmm.
I got the gist of what they were trying to do in some of the verbiage, and they're stepping over the bounds. I think they're really feeling the pressure that November is only 100 days away, and they're going to lose every chance they have, and they've been pushing and pushing and pushing and taking away as much freedom as they can daily, and everybody sees that, and it's going to play into my advantage come November, just because people are sick of it. They want
Hmm.
things that are good for the people, and not just random things that some virtue signalers are bringing up just to get
Right,
attention at the moment.
right. What's your feel when you talk to people?
Like I said, my feel is everybody's looking for a change. They want
Hmm.
somebody who's down to earth, not the typical politician, which I go out and have my Phillies cap on, and
Hmm.
I mean I might wear it with my suit, but I was out in a custom made Pennsylvania like a baseball jersey with 007 and my name on the back. So I mean
Okay.
I'm out there kind of blending in with the people, and not only that, I'm just using my own style of how I like to do things, wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses,
Hmm.
shooting from the hip and giving people real answers. And that's what they want. They don't want talking around stuff. They want a direct path to how can we fix things.
What's been your toughest question from somebody when you're out on the trail, and how'd you respond?
The abortion one is kind of been the biggest thing that people have been bringing up. That and 2A. Um, Another one's climate change. Some of the people are just so adamant about how they feel about climate, and abortion rights and this, that, and the other thing, there's no swaying them. I mean, you really can't win. You can be like, I believe truthfully, everybody for abortion should have the right to choose their own thing, bodily autonomy. The more choices, the better. Not restricting anything through the government. Like right now, how the Supreme Court ruled, I believe they did it right by kicking it down to the states. It was more of a message, I think, to Joe Biden saying, stop doing things unconstitutionally or we're going to shoot them down. And then they had a hissy fit and they want to put more Supreme Court justices on there. And that'll just lead to more havoc because if he puts more justices in, then the next president can't get nothing done. But then if they get back in power, then they'll try to do the same thing and just cater to their political interests. There's just so much corruption that,
Mhm.
And then people are not blind to it, just the bare minimum. The people who are really sticklers, which there's very few that I've had an issue with. I think I maybe had 3 incidents of somebody really having an issue with what I said, and I didn't even really get to go into detail and describing it. I gave them a flat out like, I'm for the Second Amendment, and they threw stuff in my face and walked away and screaming. And it's just like, it's just, you really can't please everybody, but
Right.
try to do your best. But
Right.
other than that, I mean, really good reception from both sides. People were telling me they were a Democrat, telling me they were a Republican. They saw I was a libertarian. They came right up to me like, I am a libertarian. How can we help? I think we had a lot of people actually sign up and want to get involved locally, and that's a good thing.
Good, good. So let me ask you, um, when it comes to, because you mentioned 2A and you were pretty clear on that, and then you said the other 2 topics. You said abortion and climate change, and I think you said you believe that it's proper for them to kick abortion back to the states, and
Mhm.
then so if it's and I know that you're running for a U.S. Senate, but it's somewhat at a state level because you're representing the state.
Mhm.
So where do you think the issue would land in Pennsylvania? Like, how do you think Pennsylvania residents would go, and is that in line with where you would go?
Well, I mean, some Pennsylvanians are going to go with their party line vote, which they're going to try to vote red or blue, no matter who type deal. Which it's
Hmm.
kind of a nonsensical vote to me because you should vote on people's merits and what they want to do. I know Mastriano's very pro-life. Shapiro's just cater to the left. So I mean, you're really choosing the lesser of 2 evils in one sense. And we do have a candidate, Matt Hattenberg, who's running for the governor spot here in Pennsylvania, and he's more of the pro-choice type person. But he'll defend people's rights and stuff like that,
Okay.
where people's rights will be taken away no matter how you look at it when the new governors come in a local level. Truthfully, through me being a senator, wanted to be a senator, I don't believe the federal government should have any say over how the states dictate people's lives. Like they
Okay.
should just. That's where I stand in my values. If I become a senator, I'm going to shut things down at that federal level where it goes to everybody's lives if it affects people broadly like that. I think that
Right.
legislature, in my eyes, legislation should be written to benefit the people, businesses, and the Fed should take the hit if anybody's going to take the hit because they're
Okay.
there to support the country and society.
Gotcha. And then where do you think the state of Pennsylvania would go? Presumably, you want virtually everything to go to the state. So I would assume that means climate change, and any legislation related to climate change as well. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, Pennsylvania should set Pennsylvania tones. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people who are in the West that still use coal. I know Biden just put another tax on coal processes, and I mean that was going back to the climate person who said we're going to die in 5 years. Where like, there's no
Right.
really having an argument with them, but it's like I could put some facts out there. It's just like we got 8 major car dealers in USA that can produce cars. They can produce just say 1 million cars max a year for the electric vehicles. If 330 million people, it's going to take over 41 years at that math to be able to produce enough electric cars for people. So we really can't not be dependent on fossil fuels to be able to make electricity for that time frame in between when we're still trying to ramp up. Just cutting off our own supply is cutting our legs out from underneath of us. And I mean, I think Shapiro would kind of shut some things down in the help hurting people with the green energy just to stay in line with Biden's policies. Mastriano would open things most likely back up and allow the wheels of progress to continue churning. And I really haven't talked to him to really know if he's going to do anything to help the climate. And I know fracking is a big thing in Pennsylvania, which I know they use a lot of water in that process, and then your contaminated waters and animals, birds, and all that stuff are being affected, which should be kind of a certain type of oversight so that we're not just completely wrecking everything and just turning the wheels of progress back on, but like a systematic, responsible response.
Gotcha. What does that responsible response kind of look like? And again, I know you're not. I know that this is more of a state level, and again, you're looking at U.S. Senate. I'm just having a conversation and just kind of trying to get a vibe of where you are. I'm not very familiar with you. I do understand the general libertarian position, but I'm just curious. What you would, if somebody were to ask you publicly, somebody with a bigger platform, and how would you respond?
Well, now that you got me thinking about how I would respond to that question, because you're the first one to ask me, I think it would have to be with our train system. We should expand the rail system across our country, pipeline system, stuff like that, so that we can maneuver and move product east, west, north, south in a responsible fashion. I mean, I truthfully am one of the ones that would have liked the Keystone to stay open. They were saying it was going to produce or be able to move over almost 1 million barrels a day from east to west and north to south and such. And that's a huge amount of gas emission vehicles between trucks, trains, all that you're just taking out of the equation, which would substantially lower greenhouse emissions if you're really going to look at some stuff by the numbers. And it would kind of be a no-brainer that kind of system should have and would have been completed if Biden didn't take the presidency. I mean, I think they were 6 months away from completion for the Keystone pipeline, and then now all the other pipelines are on hold. And I'm not saying he's ceding the error of his ways, but I think the fact that his poll numbers are dropping is kind of forcing his hand to start moving some things. I just heard this morning that he's building the border wall again to close up the gaps, because I mean, you having people locked down in their homes and telling them to mandate this, mandate that, and you have to get shots and boosters and all these other weird things they want to say are just popping up all over the place. But then you have an open border where people are coming across with more diseases than the stuff they're talking about, and they need care, but then you're just shipping them all over the country. I mean, you're just asking for trouble when you do something like that. I mean, there's so many facets to so many different questions. I wasn't prepared for that one, but I think with upgrading and building onto our train systems and stuff so that we can have more freight, I think that would really help Pennsylvania and help the rest of our country with moving forward for the next few decades, if we could find a viable solution of transition other than just shutting one side down and trying to open up another.
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. So you mentioned Mastriano and Shapiro, who I'm not familiar with. So I assume those are your Republican and your Democrat competitors, correct?
Those are not. Those are the governor candidates that are statewide. But we were talking about state. My actual candidates is going to be John Fetterman and Dr. Oz.
Okay, Dr. Oz. Wait a minute. Is this Dr. Oz who I'm thinking of, Dr. Oz?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
I did not realize
Dr. Oz.
he was in I did not realize he was out of Pennsylvania. And you said Fetterman, right?
Yep. Yeah,
All right.
well, Oz is actually out in New Jersey, but he does have houses in Pennsylvania, Turkey, and other places.
Gotcha. Okay. I was not aware of that. I did hear about him running, but I wasn't paying too close attention. So what I'd like to hear then is what is your single biggest um, pushback or issue with each one of those two?
Well, I guess I'll start with Fetterman, and
Mhm.
I was in a economic forum with him, or not economic, a foreign policy forum with him in Pittsburgh that is on my site. That we were talking about foreign policy and such, and he pretty much just kept saying over and over is that I'm a leftist candidate. We're moving more closer to leftist socialism and such like that. And that's what the people want. And that's not what the people want. Like most people don't know what socialism definition it really is. I mean, his wife comes from Venezuela. It's a socialist country, and they don't have an economy because they went with socialism. They have
Right.
poor people everywhere, and their dollar is worth nothing. You need tens of thousands of the bills just to be able to buy a loaf of bread.
Hmm.
And we keep printing money like that here. I mean, that's kind of inflation and stuff like that that we're going to be pushing towards if they just keep printing money with no end in sight and really not addressing issues and just spend and throwing money at the wall and hoping that it sticks. Dr. Oz, on the other hand, I mean, he's not a self-made billionaire. It's a family business. They own the Aspen Tree Service that goes around and trims trees all nationwide, and that was his family's business before he came into the picture and got his doctorate and was on TV and such. But he's flip-flopped on almost every issue that you can think of. I don't think that being on TV really puts him in a better light to anybody because he wasn't like a super popular TV guy. He was more just like a morning television doctor show where people might get some advice. And most of the advice that he gave wasn't even the best. It was more, can I make a buck on this? Like bringing up
Hmm.
new things to burn fat and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sure he made money on lots and lots of money. I mean, he's a billionaire. So, I mean, they got a lot of money to throw around. I don't, but I think my genuine nature and my background have been 21-year carpenter and been working for the people of Pennsylvania, been personable and face to face with the people of Pennsylvania, and will continue to be, and going out and meeting the people where they're at, not special private events like Fetterman has. He's RSVP events everywhere where special hidden addresses you can't even show up unless you RSVP, and it costs hundreds of dollars of special interest donors and such. And Dr. Oz has got pictures of him out on the internet that he's trying to talk to somebody, and somebody in the background's flipping him off. So I mean, it's kind of a love-hate relationship with him from what I'm seeing and hearing from the people, and it's his name kind of comes up as a cringeworthy name instead of, oh yeah, I could really vote for that guy. And then they give me their arguments of why he is a good candidate. I haven't heard that really for any of them other than they're just, like I said, voting red or blue and no matter who.
Gotcha. So if I'm a voter and I'm kind of on the fence and I'm like, I'm looking at all three of you and I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know, I like some things from Dr. Oz. I like some things from Fetterman. I like some things from you. And I know that's probably not the typical voter that you run into, right? They're probably more one or the other. They're not, you're not really going to run into somebody that's like looking at all three kind of evenly. Like that kind of
Mhm.
world just doesn't exist. But let's pretend it exists.
Mhm.
And so what would your pitch to me be and say, this is why I'm better than Dr. Oz, and this is why I'm better than Fetterman, like on some sort of policy issue.
Well, I mean, I have my tax plan, and that's kind of like my bread and butter. I mean, it helps small businesses and it builds them up so that they can produce more for themselves. It takes away the federal income tax on the business so that they can build the equity and establish their business, which would help many of Pennsylvania and small businesses across the country to be able to sustain themselves and thrive
Mhm.
without government getting involved and just making their lives harder. Um, and then even with the back end of my tax plan, where I want to help out with unions and corporations, which I actually used the entire pitch of my 3-step plan to somebody who asked me, who's like, I like voting Republican. What would make me want to vote for you? And I gave them that, which the third part of my tax plan is giving a 1% tax break to unions and big corporations only if they give you paid for healthcare, vision, dental, and hearing, no copays, so that they cover all your costs of
Mhm.
your healthcare. Nothing comes out of your check, so you're taking more home. And the fact that they're getting that 1% tax break, just using Amazon as an example, they made $330 million or $1 billion last year. That means they would get $3.3 billion to put back into their employees, of which $3.3 billion and paying off all their employees' health care, they still would make money
Mhm.
on top of that, out of that 1%. So it's good on their books. I'm betting on pretty much corporate and capital greed, but the people get what they need. They need the health care.
Gotcha.
We take the government out of it. We don't have to have subsidized Obamacare or any of that. We don't have to do all that. And people who have a job work, which is another benefit of working for some of these corporations that would buy into this plan, help them grow, help the people grow, and really just a benefit for everybody.
Gotcha. Well, since it's your bread and butter, let's go
Mhm.
ahead and jump into the bill review portion. And as people know, this segment comes with a little intro segment. So let me go ahead and throw that up, and then we'll be right back, and we will talk about your tax plan that is the bread and butter and is why people should vote for you over Fetterman or Dr. Oz. So let's go ahead and run that clip.
But I know I'll be a law someday, at least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
All right. And I assume you were able to see that video as well. That
Mhm.
is my son. He's actually a little bit older now. And luckily, your bill is not the size of the bill that was in the video. Of course, that was just to mock, a lot of those omnibus bills that they put out, those 1,000-page bills.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny. I actually tweeted the other day that there was, who was it? Trying to think of her name. I'm drawing a blank on her name at the moment, but she had put out this idea that we should have Lauren Boebert. She had suggested that that they make it mandatory 5 days so that people could read the bill, and people
Mhm.
were making fun of her over this. And so I tweeted out in general, I just said people are making fun of her over this, but be glad that I'm not coming up with the suggestions, because I would have said 1 day per page, and
Mhm.
then was like, oh, a 300 or a 1,000-page omnibus bill? See you in about 3 years. So let's go ahead and put your tax plan up here. So we'll go ahead and add it. Boom, there it is. And let me increase the size just a wee bit here. Make sure that we can read it very well. All right, perfect. So it's 4 points. It's literally only, like, it's not even a half a page.
Mhm.
So I'm going to give you a great kudos on two fronts. Number one, you're the first candidate to ever come with your own bill and say, here's a bill that I would like to push. Number two, this bill is literally a half a page, and I love short bills because it makes it easy to read them and decide whether or not we should move forward with them. So let's walk through these. This is your small business tax break proposal, and this is what you would want to push once you're elected to U.S. Senate, correct?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's walk through what each of these 4 points, and I assume you can read it well. Let me know if I need to increase the size.
I can't read that at the moment. Um,
Okay.
it is, if you could read it off and then we talk about it, I can handle that because I can't see that whatsoever.
Gotcha. Okay. Not a problem at all. So number one, all new businesses with 4 employees or less, non-franchise or chain business, shall receive 3 times deductions federally. Number equated shall fall no lower than 0. So what are we doing here?
Well, we're, like I said, we're giving the initiative to small businesses, and especially startup businesses. Usually businesses, you're running with a bare bones crew when you first start out, maybe just the owner and maybe an employee or two, maybe even three if you're lucky. But way I see it, we don't get any tax breaks as Americans from the day we start working. It's automatically you're getting taxed. There's no real initiative nor plan to really get people the help that they need to be able, or just even the startup capital to do that. You can't go to the bank and be like, I want to start a business, show them the business plan and get a loan for capital. You just can't do it. So pretty much what you have to do is you have to start with scratch and you start with nothing. But jobs require tools, equipment, facilities in some cases, of which those costs add up to so much that you're pretty much broke for the first 5 years until you establish your business, and then you start gaining popularity and the income to be able to sustain and grow. But with my bill, it would jumpstart that, because now you're not getting that 12 to 36% that federally would be taken from you per tax bracket, and that money goes right back to you. And in turn, because you're getting that money back, you can help your employees by paying them a little bit more as well. You're not so cash strapped that if they need a raise, you can't give it to them. Now, with this, you could, as your business grows, you grow, your employees grow, and everything gets better. And that's just how I see it as a small business owner and starting my own business, that this would have benefited me. I might not be able to ever reap the benefits of my own bill, but I know it would help some people.
Okay. When you say some people, roughly, can you tell me about how many employers or what percentage of employers in Pennsylvania would fall under number one?
Uh, the percentage and numbers of that, I'm not 100% sure of how many would be affected by that. But I talked to a bunch of small business owners and told them about this with the 4 employees or less, and they're like, "Hey, that's me." And I'd say there's probably a dozen of them right there at the festival I was at this weekend.
Hmm.
Statewide, you're probably maybe looking in thousands, maybe tens of thousands of small businesses that could fall under it. But then also, because if there's an initiative for small businesses, you're creating that opportunity that the amount of people who might want to go out and start their own business, especially with all the businesses that have gone out of business, it gives them the room so that they can break into the market now. So it may create thousands more, 10,000 more. I would love to be across the country. Everybody can start a small business and be able to do something on their own. And as an entrepreneur, I feel that everybody should take a leap of faith at times. Bad business plans will break businesses, but a good business plan, and with this tax bill, I think a lot of people could succeed on their own, and then while they succeed on their own, then they can form their own opinion instead of just being an employee for their entire lives.
Gotcha. So number two then says upon passing the 4-employee threshold, the numbers will return to normal. So whatever the 3 times deduction goes back to the regular deduction. So that's pretty simple and straightforward. No explanation really necessary on that. However, now that I'm looking at 1 and 2, my question is, how do you answer the concern, if you will, that some businesses might refuse to hire a 5th person? And if I'm a business and I have 4 people and I choose not to hire a 5th person, I mean, I'm more than I can do that, but now I've been incentivized not to. So there's that 5th person who might have otherwise received a job, and now is no longer able to get a job. Or if I have 5 or 6 employees and I decide that I can run the business off of 4, and so I let 2 go so that I can cash in on this deduction of multiples. So how do you answer that concern?
I understand that's a concern, and I've actually already thought about that, because I know first thing they would say is that this has to have a cap number for years. which, like I said, it takes about 5 years to establish a business. I would like it to be indefinite, but that's just the libertarian in me, and that's just my way of ending the Fed, death by 1,000 cuts. But the realistic in me, they would have to probably put a cap on it, and which I would fight adamantly to keep it at a 10-year thing. So after 10 years, that system shuts down for that company. So then they go back to just the way of business as usual and tax plans and stuff like that. So that would hinder the person who just wants to keep themselves under that 4-person cap after that 10 years. But before that, I mean, got to give some people some opportunities to create their own wealth. And I see it in my tax plan and with my viewpoint on it, that if they're making, let's just say, $500,000 a year because of my tax plan and the deductions and all that stuff, and they can pay their employees more, and they have the 4 employees, they're going to be able to build enough nest egg capital to be able to expand their business beyond that 6-person crew. And after 10 years of 500K, I mean, you're looking at a substantial amount of money that they can reinvest in any way, shape, or form that they want to. And that's the benefit for the person with a good business savvy. And that, like I said, I prefer to build bills that creates opportunities and not hindrances for the people. And
Gotcha.
I just want to give people the opportunity to be able to strive their own path. And I think this bill would do that in the way I have it shaped. Even adding the 10 years.
Okay. All right. And then, so now we've got 2 more points to it. Number 3, small business employers who can provide paid time off and health benefits will receive an additional 5% reduction in your federal tax. So explain your thinking here, because now you're kind of incentivizing a business to provide certain amenities to their employees, so certain benefits, I guess.
Yep. Well, I mean, there are a lot of companies that have more than 4 employees. So this is for them. And this is also the extra incentive, which I left out of my last description, that would allow a company to build past the 4-person threshold and still get some kind of a tax break, which, like I said, if you're making 500K plus or even in the 200K ballpark, providing a healthcare system, even if it's a supplementary one where it comes out of the other people, your employees pay, and then they get a 5% tax break, does give them the incentive to build their business farther than just keeping it under the cap for profit. I mean, they can do it any way, shape, or form that they want, but then after that 10 years, then this is their only other option, which then again, people are getting the benefits and getting it subsidized through the company, not through the government, and they get the health care that they need. So that's why I built that in this way.
Okay. And then I assume the last one. So we're going from very small businesses to small businesses to corporations here. So you got corporations / unions, and they will receive a 1% tax break by providing full coverage of health, vision, and dental to all employees without a copay. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so the same kind of thinking here. Look, we're kind of dividing businesses up into 3 categories based on size, and saying here are the incentives for you, and the incentives are all taking money from the federal government. Right? Okay.
Yep.
As a libertarian, I can't argue with this. I like the idea of the federal government getting less money. Right? Here's my question. As a regular tax-paying person, this is basically the and when I say regular, I mean like non-libertarian who's like, oh, all taxation is theft. I mean, the person that says, you know what, we kind of do need taxes. So this money, this money that's no longer coming in would normally have went to something. So have you considered what that something might be, and say, okay, well, since I'm taking money effectively out of the mouth of the federal government, here's what we need to cut, so that, because you're not going to get it, so we might as well cut this thing, so you don't have to worry about trying to spend on it.
Yep. Well, I mean, that goes back to like the Obamacare and the health care that they have through the federal government, of which even Joe Biden himself said that in 10 years it's going to cost $40 trillion because they misread the math, which I was on Obamacare. So I know firsthand what the whole problem was, is pretty much they were charging the American people double what it would have been for healthcare. So they have a company which is all shell companies and conglomerates that are selling the healthcare to the people of America at a cost of half of what they're subsidizing it for. So say it's $600. So 300 goes to the company that sells it. 300 actually goes to the healthcare, which if you ever had private insurance, you know, you can get a plan for $200-300 for yourself and get full coverage of really nice healthcare. So pretty much the government's spending double that just to have you in the government plan, of which now they have to supplement more money into and keep constantly revamping it so that it can survive, of which it's just a monstrosity of epic proportions that really isn't going to pan out to really help anybody except draw more money out of the taxpayer, of which as a libertarian, I'm against that. That's why I built the plan in here, so that big corporations who have the profit margin and the ability, and I know are greedy, will give the people the health care that they need. And the few things that are lost through that 1%, truthfully, looking at the squandering spending of the government, it's a small drop in the tank of what they've been. I mean, they just dropped $40 billion on Ukraine to never see that money again. Now, like I said, Amazon would have received $3.3 billion out of this through my tax plan. The amount, how many, let's see, it's 150 on the NASDAQ. So you're just numbers game. Let's just say each one has $1 billion. You're really looking at $150 billion. You're really, I think our GDP's somewhere in the 2 to 3 trillion range. I think they could survive that hit. And there's plenty of other 3-letter agencies we could cut out to make up that deficit. So I think it's a viable option, and I'm for smaller government anyway. And I don't see why we keep making new 3-letter organizations in the government just to keep constantly be pouring money into that really doesn't benefit the American citizen.
Gotcha. Since you would be U.S. Senate, you would have the opportunity to either push a bill or vote on a bill to end a 3-letter agency. So which one would be the first? Which one's the top of your list?
I'd say the ATF's number 1, DEA, and then the drug war will be number 2. I'd be for a merging of the ICE and the Homeland Security and taking away the other 2 smaller ICE 3-letter organizations just entirely, and the chopping block list is almost never ending.
Right. No, I get you. Okay, so we're going to start with the ATF. And what's your beef with the ATF that would cause you to say, you know, we got to get rid of that one?
Well, I mean, I'm, like I said, a big proprietor of the Second Amendment, so I don't really see that we should have a firearm agency that pretty much is just spying on people to, I don't even know what end. They're not stopping any mass shootings, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the FBI knows about stuff and not stopping anything. So I really don't see the purpose of that organization at all.
Okay. No, I agree. And trust me, when I'm asking these questions, it's not necessarily because I disagree. I'm just trying to get a sense for your, you know, how you see it. I don't want to make an assumption that how I see it and how you see it are the same. I do agree that, you know, at a bare minimum, people should be able to look and say, you know what, we are paying through our tax dollars for the ATF and all these other 3-letter agencies. So the real question should be for anybody, if you know, not necessarily libertarians, because libertarians like shouldn't be there in the first place, period, end of story. But for people who kind of side with the idea, they should look at it and say, am I getting, or are we getting what we're paying for? You know, and, you know, if they're not stopping mass shootings and, you know, they're not doing all these things that they exist, or we're told they exist for, then maybe apart from the libertarian view, it really makes sense to evaluate and say, well, do we even need them? Yeah, and I think it's a
I
reasonable
totally
question to
agree.
ask,
Yep,
right?
it is.
So,
A-
and
Any reasonable person should be asking that. Why are we paying for all these agencies that obviously are failing us miserably, and should they still be around? I mean, that is the question that should be asked for all the agencies. If they're not up to snuff, or they're spending too much money, maybe downsize their budgets, and like I said, make the government a lean, mean fighting machine for Americans, and not just
right.
fighting against Americans. That's how I really see it, is that everything is a hindrance to the American way of life, and it shouldn't
Mhm.
be that way. It should be there for assistance.
Gotcha. So where do you stand? And again, this is a more national level. I think I know the answer, but where do you stand on this idea of national divorce? And before you answer, national divorce, for anybody that may be watching is not familiar with it, it's this idea. It's not quite secession per se, but it's simply a breakup of the United States, where some states decide, you know what, we're going to go our own way. And I say it's not secession only to kind of separate it from the secession from the Civil War, where we had this big nasty Civil War. It could just simply be a state that says, you know what, we're doing pretty well. And turns out the federal government is, more of a hindrance to us as a state. And so we would like to go ahead and just give it a shot and see what we can do on our own. So where do you stand on a national divorce?
I am very cautious to take any side on that. A
Hmm.
lot of people that I have talked to are very worried about a civil war, a national divorce, or like even just a secession, which even in our Constitution, secession is illegal and
Hmm.
non-constitutional, which I don't want to even bring up like a constitutional convention at any point right now. With the sides being so divided, it'll only hurt the American people even more to do changes to the entire Constitution, one through one side changing it or another, unless it's all of us talking together and in agreement. We most likely are pushing toward a separation of states and such. Um, just at looking at it as a leadership, if I would say this is the president of the United States, I mean, I wouldn't be dividing the country as much if I didn't want that to happen. It almost seems like they're driving us into a corner of no return to gain maximum control, which then the government is a totalitarian government, of which I never want to see in America, the land
Hmm.
of the free and the home of the brave. And it's just, it's we're being dealt a really shitty hand right now with how things have changed in such a short time. I've never seen, I mean, throughout the history of the presidency, nobody's really gone over 6 executive orders. And now we have a president who's, even in his running, said that you can't rule through executive order unless you're a dictator. And here he is, to almost 150 executive orders in, looking like a dictator, and won't take any comment nor opinion of anybody with sliding poll numbers or any of that. And we're in a sad state right now. But I mean, the election's coming up for the midterm. That'll maybe quell some of the fires of secession and division of the country. And we can start fighting back all the way leading up to the 2024 election. But I mean, that's looking to be a shit show in itself. So I mean, who knows how things are going to turn out in the next 5 to 6 years? But I'm going to fight my hardest, if I do become a senator, to keep the country intact,
Okay.
because we're stronger together, and I know that without a doubt.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So I think I've come to the end of all the questions that I have for you. So what have we missed? What kind of things do we need to talk about that people need to know as far as your run for US Senate?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I'm going to be out and about and meeting people. I'm hoping to set up in a debate. We do have a PBS on board if Fetterman and Oz want to put their hat in the ring and come and step in there with me, because I still think they have a lot of proven to themselves and to the American people that they are ready to take on the position on either of them. And I want the opportunity to prove myself to the people of Pennsylvania and the people of America that I'm ready for that position as well. I have a lot of ideas for a lot of different topics. If you have any questions, just go ahead and ask me. I'm going to give you a straight answer. If you don't like it, it happens. I mean, I'm my own individual, and I'm going to continue to be my own individual. Everybody out in America should still be their own individual and not just take things at face value. Do your research. Look into your candidates. I hand out stuff all day to all kinds of people, and all I can ask them at the very least is just to look into my values and my plans and the videos I have posted on my site, to look into how I am as an individual. And if you want to vote for me, I want them to make the decision. And other than that, I mean, I'm ready for the challenge. Bring it.
All right. Well, where can people find you?
They can find me at eric4pa.com. You can email me at eric4pa@gmail.com. Like I said, at Eric4PA, I have a few videos and stuff like that, and my viewpoints on quite a few topics. I do
And that's
have
the number 4, correct?
Yeah, the number 4, Eric, the number 4 pa.com. And I have my Twitter and Instagram and Facebook feeds all the way at the bottom. You can just click on the Twitter and Facebook handle, and it'll take you right to it. You can follow me on there, and hopefully you guys will like the stuff I'm doing.
Okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate everybody listening in. And I hope that you will go and check out Eric's website. That was Eric4PA, right? Eric4PA.com, correct?
Yep.
Eric4PA, number 4, PA.com. Go check him out. If you have the opportunity, if you're, if it's within your means, make sure you show him a little bit of support in some way, in any way that you can, and connect with him on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and ask him some questions. And with that, I will go ahead and end the broadcast. So I thank everybody for tuning in.